sexologist, specialist family violence practitioner, ex-florist, mum of 3, Jess Douglas-Monks.
We were in a throuple for like 18 months and that probably ended about 18 months ago.
I feel in our society there is this superiority complex that happens with monogamous couples. They think they're elite or better than or superior than people who are in A&M relationships. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean,
you navigated some pretty significant mental health challenges, bipolar disorder, postnatal depression. Talk a little bit about that.
For a long time, I was like quite heavily medicated, but now I'm on the most minimal amount of medication.
That's fucking unreal. What advice would you give to people who I guess are experiencing similar and wanting to really kind of wean themselves off medications and all of those things? This podcast is being recorded on Gubbi Gubbi land. We pay our respects to the traditional custodians of this land, our country, and elders past and present. Thank you for being here again for this week's episode of Tell Me About It podcast. Today, I am very excited to have a beautiful friend, Jess Douglas-Monks, sexologist, specialist family violence practitioner, ex-florist, mum of 3, and I was blessed to meet this beautiful woman at a Woman in Front event, shout out Lila, in Melbourne. And I just felt really, really connected to you. And I loved what you had to say. And I love just edgy women who are doing cool things and innovating in amazing fields. And I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you.
So
I'm excited to be here.
we're going to be diving into some really big stuff today, some unconventional career paths, mental health journeys, sex education in rural Australia, and what it means to build a life that actually fits who you are. This one's going to be pretty raw, pretty real, and honestly, I'm very excited to pick your beautiful brain apart today and just get inside there and see what's going on. So Jess is a sexologist, as I mentioned. She is a specialist family violence practitioner in rural Victoria. She launched her sexology account and her podcast at a time when there was really absolutely nothing like this at all, let alone in your area. So I know that, Jess, you became many people's first introduction to speaking openly about sex, and you are also a mum of 3, which is a feat in itself. You have been married for, in your own words, a million years. You identify as a queer woman and you are in an A&M, an ethical non-monogamous marriage. And I'd love to start there, I think, because I feel in our society there is this superiority complex that happens with monogamous couples and monogamous marriages, that they think they're elite or better than or superior than people who are in A&M relationships. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, currently, we're monogamous, but we've previously been in a throuple. We were in a throuple for 18 months, and that probably ended about 18 months ago. But it was something that ended amicably, and it was just logistical and that sort of thing. And now we're friends with that person, and it was definitely a departure from the norm and anything we had done before, and it happened sort of spontaneously. It certainly wasn't something we planned. But it was a great experience, a lovely experience, an eye-opening experience. And we learned, I think, a lot about ourselves in the process, and a lot about other people as well, and the way they react to things and that kind of thing.
Why do you think that people are so funny about it or are so judgmental about it?
It's because it's different, and we're sort of given a very specific narrative when we're young, and most people carry that narrative with them throughout their whole life. And people are afraid of what's different. But I think if you look at the divorce rates, you would say probably what is normal is not working so well for everybody, and there are reasons behind that people are just sometimes too afraid to explore.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm a statistic of divorce. I'm very happily married now, but I totally understand that as well. It's becoming more and more common, and I think it's being really exciting. I think in 2025 and beyond, I think that the narrative is changing quite a bit. Even people being gender fluid, gender queer, just being with whoever, whenever, whatever they want. And I think that's a really exciting time.
Yeah.
I know that I employed a lot of young people in my salons and barbershops, and I just kind of loved they were so free and so open and just did whatever they wanted. And there was it was awesome. It was so good to see. And I love that people are just leaning into whatever makes them happy and not becoming too bogged down in what society says is okay.
Exactly. And recognizing that there's no one right way to do things. And things might not
everyone's
work out.
consenting and
that's okay.
Totally. And if you've got 3 consenting people in your throuple or whatever, then what's the problem? You're not harming anybody else.
That's it.
It's about you guys, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's even enough of a stigma. I know that even when we went to school, and I've seen you post about this and talk about this a lot, which is like obviously educating younger people. There was always this stigma at school. We spoke about male ejaculation. We spoke about male orgasm. We never spoke about females. It was always about if you have sex, you're going to get pregnant or you're going to get an STD. There was never anything that was about pleasure. And so many of us had completely dysfunctional sex lives and our 20s, our 30s, even later than that. And that's really sad.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but it's the reality for most people, to be honest.
Yep. And look, you had a bit of a career pivot. You went from florist to sexologist and now spending a lot in like family violence and domestic violence. How did this whole pathway unfold for you?
Well, I spent sort of the first part of my working life as a dental assistant and dental receptionist, and then
love that
for quite a long time. And then I just knew it never did anything for me. Like I didn't like it. It was a job, not a career. And I saw a job at a florist and just thought I would love to do that because it was creative. And I went for it and I got it. And, you know, like just bit by bit, I did it part-time and that kind of thing and ran my own little business for a while. But then I realised I didn't love it enough to be getting up at 3 a.m. and doing weddings and that kind of thing. So
and flower markets and everything else that goes along with it.
So I sort of went, I was at a point when I was about 35. I'm like, am I going to keep doing this and really give it my all, or am I going to go back to uni? Because I stopped going to uni after about 3 weeks when I was 18, and I decided to go back to uni because I knew I didn't have the passion for the business side of floristry to follow through. So that's when I decided to go back to uni to do psychology.
So going back to uni at 35 would have been an experience. I have a friend who you know who's back at uni at 41, and she just says she's, you know, literally in school with people who are closer in age to her children. So tell me about that.
It was an experience. I sort of thought when I applied, I was like, you know what, I'm probably not even going to follow it through. I won't get past the first month, and then but I told enough people so I would be held accountable, so I couldn't just pull out. And like up to my
love that
assessment. Well, because I know what I'm like, and I really thought that I probably wouldn't get past the first assessment, and I freaked out about the first assessment so badly, and I really thought, if I'm going to give up, this is when it will be. And I did the first one, got through it, and then was like, okay, I'm good to go now. And then I just stuck with it. So 3 years later, got the degree.
That's amazing. I think I understand you. I'm a creative person. Nothing banes my existence more than studying or reading from a book or being in a classroom environment. That is just not how I operate. So I get it. I absolutely do get it. And look, I know that during that time, and you speak very openly about this too, you navigated some pretty significant mental health challenges, bipolar disorder, postnatal depression. Talk a little bit about that.
So I've had bipolar type 2 for as long as I can remember. I was diagnosed when I was 27 after the birth of my second daughter and had postnatal depression when the kids were babies. So my youngest was probably, what was he, like 5 maybe? Yeah, because I waited till he went into prep.
Yep.
So while I was doing the degree, my mental health was fairly stable, but up until then, I'd been through a fairly significant journey with it, getting misdiagnosed constantly with anxiety and depression when it was bipolar, and then, navigating pregnancy, having small children and that kind of thing when you have bipolar and postnatal depression. And it's been a lot. It's been a very, very significant mental health journey.
Yeah, especially when you've got 3 little people that you're responsible for as well, trying to show up and be a wife and run a household and manage kids and study and have a career and do all the things. And then as well as that, even just learning that you have a diagnosis can be quite confronting, but it must have also been somewhat relieving to kind of actually know what it was and actually get a grasp on that too.
Yeah, no, it was a relief because I knew, I had a fairly good idea that that's what it was. It just took such a long time to get that diagnosis, and I had to get quite bad before I could get that diagnosis. So for a long time then I was like quite heavily medicated, but now I'm not. It's quite pretty much managed on the most minimal amount of medication and just me being aware of how things work for me.
That's fucking unreal. And what advice would you give to people who I guess are experiencing similar and wanting to really kind of wean themselves off medications and all of those things? Obviously, they feel like they need the medication, but they don't like what the medication's doing to them either. So it's kind of that contrasting journey. What's your advice for them?
Yeah, everyone's journey is definitely unique. So I wouldn't give anybody else any advice regarding that because that is not something I'm qualified to do. For me, it was a long period of time that it took for up and down, like going on more medication, dialing it back, years. I mean,
yeah,
not a short period of time. And it was only, once I felt really, really well and stable in my moods and that kind of thing that I knew I could start to come down off things slowly and get to a point where I was on as little as I possibly could be, like actually a sub-therapeutic dose.
Yep.
So, but that's just for me, like, and some people really, really need it and they need it always, and that's fine. You know, like if I go through stages myself still where I notice things changing and I'm like, okay, maybe I need to just go up that little bit, chat with the doctor and go up for a bit.
Yeah.
Just removing that stigma around the medication and recognizing that, sometimes you need it more than others. Life is not stable. Life is not static. Things change, situations change, and sometimes you need it and sometimes you don't. And just getting more comfortable with that.
I think it's a great point too, just to remove the guilt and the shame and everything that goes along with any sort of mental health things is so vital. And it's good there's more conversations happening about it now, and it's becoming, I guess, more normalized, and it's not like you're a leper now if you've got some sort of mental health thing going on. So I think that's a good exciting change that's happening too. But I guess I want to change the conversation a little bit now to more like sex education and I guess breaking the taboos around that, because weirdly, as much as we're progressing, we're also kind of going backwards as well. It's like this weird juxtaposition that's happening at the moment. But why is there such a gap in open conversations about sex?
It's like the age-old question. I mean, it's just, I guess what fascinates me about sex and sex education and sexuality is the fact that people are so in their heads about it. And I think that it's just the narratives that we've always been fed for years and years and years, and it dates back
from
really
so
long
young
time.
as well, from so young. Just,
and I think it comes to us in a lot of forms that we don't even realize it comes to us in. Like, I remember, and I still hear people say to young girls today, oh, close your legs when you're sitting down,
Oh, yeah,
like
that was my parents. Hardcore.
Laugh comfortably. And you're not even conscious of anything at that point in time. You're just sitting down comfortably and you're told, close your legs.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
Yeah.
So just little things like that, such subtle messaging that gets taught to us from a young age, and then we take it all in whether we think we do or not, and it becomes a part of our unconscious reaction to sex and sexuality as we get older. So
such sponges when we start receiving that information too, right? And it's that you distort and generalize it in whichever way your brain can process at such a young age. But it's like the undoing is harder than the learning, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's messages that we get from the media as well, TV shows, movies, advertisements, print media, all of that from a young age. We're absorbing everything. And like very little of it is positive or was positive when we were younger. And so we're taking all of that in, and then no one is taught the language to have conversations around sex and sexuality. And so then you get into sexual relationships and you've got no idea how to talk about it. And that's no one's fault. That's just how everyone more or less is raised.
look, it fucks me right off. And I know we get into conversations about this all the time, but even how sexual assault cases, even femicide and those sorts of things are even advertised in the media. And it's like, the woman's always pushed her partner too far, or the woman's always was dressed provocatively or was painted in this specific way, and fucks me right off. Fucks me right off. It's so fucking angering. I think it's only just this week in Italy, first country in the whole world to do this, has made femicide an automatic conviction. So you will be convicted with that. And I'm like, finally, someone's catching on. It'd be great if it started bloody happening here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're a very, very long way off anything like that here.
I know. But yeah, it's still awful that even with all the feminism and empowerment and everything, we're still going so backwards in so many ways too. But I always appreciate your input on that. And I always, appreciate following. You share some really good insights and some really good stories and some really great content around this type of thing too. So I think it's great. On that, how did you, I guess, recognize this gap and I guess made you decide that you wanted to be the one that was going to fill that gap too and bridge that gap between, honest conversations about sex and sex education and consent and everything else?
Decision. I guess it was just that's what I felt passionately about. So that's what I spoke about. And later on, like before I got my job, my current role in family violence, I briefly had a crisis care advocate role with CASA, which is Centre Against Sexual Assault. So that obviously brought that home for me, and I learned a lot through that, even though it was a very short period of time. And yeah, I don't know how I could not speak about it. Given that even if it's a small platform, it's a platform. And and it just astounds me how sheltered the general public are from the reality that so many people are facing in regards to sexual assault and family violence. It's so much more prevalent than people have any idea of.
Why do you think it is so hidden?
Because of the gendered nature of it. Yeah. And because the people who make the laws and the people who are in power are the people that the laws and that sort of thing probably need to be made to protect us from in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's a really complicated subject and it's so vast.
So multifaceted, hey.
Nuanced, and intersectionality plays an enormous role, and a lot of people don't even know what that means yet, let alone understand how it affects family violence and sexual assault. And it's too hard for most people. It's just too hard, basket. It's just like, I don't want to think about that. No. Or they've experienced it, or they know someone who's experienced it, and it's too difficult to think about.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people just want to think that it's someone else. It's happening somewhere else to someone else. It's not that close to me, but it's close to everybody.
Oh, and the thing and I see this happen all the time too. It's always not all men until it's, one of your friends. And then it's, it's baffling and it's horrible.
Not always men, but always a man.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's exactly. The women I've dated have never been complicated. The men I've dated, whole other level. Until this one, I tell you. And even the ones that I haven't dated, it's always a fucking man. Always.
Yeah.
Anyway, you talk a lot about consent education as well, which I think is a great conversation that's happening pretty generally now as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
I think it just, I remember my experiences because, I'm 40 next month. So, my experiences were very different growing up, my sexual experiences, and my friends were. And I think teenagers nowadays actually do have a much better grasp on consent and that kind of thing than we probably give them credit for.
Yeah.
It is a conversation that's happening in schools. If schools are doing anything about sex and sex education, it's usually consent, which is one positive. They're not ever really doing much or enough, but they usually will do that because it's a safer, more comfortable topic for teachers to talk about than anything else. And I think that kids these days are being raised by a lot of the time by people who are a bit more mindful of bodily autonomy and that kind of thing. They're having education from a young age, about body safety and that kind of thing. So slowly but surely those messages are coming through, not quick enough, not large enough or vast enough, but it's happening.
Yep.
It's really positive. then you've still got people who don't understand the links, like the direct links between, you know, forcing your children to hug every stranger they meet and every relative they meet, you know, that kind of thing, just so that adult feels comfortable, and not recognizing that that's giving them a direct message later in life that, you know, you should always give someone else control over your body and that your body is not your own.
And that is what I learned through therapy too, was that was definitely something that happened to me, being forced to do things frequently that I didn't want to do and getting really upset about it, like my whole body having a reaction to it. And then later in life, having a previously abusive marriage and previously abusive relationship to this, where I was continually treated like shit. And to be honest with you, my family weren't there for me when I needed them to be, you know, and it's because it's just expected, and that's the roles in a relationship, and it's so toxic and so fucking horrible. But again, it's that subtle messaging, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think where people get really upset and caught up about kids having sex education at, you know, in prep, it's like you only have to look to understand that it's not sex education per se. It really is bodily autonomy and consent education, which then wraps it up later on when we get to the actual sex and that kind of thing. And it's so protective. It is a protective factor for children against sexual assault, and people are so caught up on the sex part of it.
Yes.
They're basically willing to put their kids in danger by not letting them be taught that. And it just blows my fucking mind.
There's such an interesting perspective on it too, because even until you've said it out loud, now obviously I've done lots of unpacking in therapy, like this conversation directly as well, but it is it's so funny how the messaging is so different for someone who's under the age of 8 years old or under the age of 7 years old versus like how it shows up later in life for them. And it's exactly right. It has nothing actually to do with sex at all. It's about saying no and being listened to and being heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Incredible. And with that too, I guess, you know, I've got lots of incredible friends around me, like you, like Lila, like people who have, you know, young kids and who are what I consider still young, cool people that I'm sure your kids know. But sex in general is a normal part of conversations in the households. And tell me a little bit about that, because even having a throuple or an E&M relationship and having kids involved, how did that conversation happen?
Well, I've always been really, really open and honest with the kids. My girls are like 14 months apart, and it was always my goal right from the start to make sure that they were spoken to at an age-appropriate level about these kind of things, and to answer any questions that they had honestly, and not have them feel shame, not have them feel like it's dirty or yuck or anything like that. And you know, that goes with like not being shamed of our bodies and that kind of thing, and, you know, teaching them the correct anatomy, the anatomical terms for their body, and which is, again, another protective factor against child abuse, sexual abuse. But so my kids were great. My daughters were really open, really honest, loved having those conversations, understood that it wasn't their place to go and tell others. Now they're 13 and 14. They're the same as anyone else. They think it's gross. They don't want to talk. They really don't want to hear about it.
Especially from mum.
Regardless, no matter, I've done every single thing. I could not have been more open, honest, and transparent throughout their childhood, but they're no different to any other teenager now. They think it's disgusting, which is pretty hilarious for us, to be honest. But my son is different. He's 9, and he has never, ever wanted to know anything. And when I have brought it up with him, because I'm like he needs to start to know, periodically I will bring it up with him, and he really just is like, oh, no. And I have to respect that, because I believe he does have a base idea of, you know, puberty and sex and that kind of thing, but he's not comfortable talking about it yet.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to force him just because I want him to know.
Yep.
It will happen when it happens, and that's fine for him. The girls were the opposite, and so we treated it differently for them. Like, you've just got to know your kid.
I love the concept of just being fucking honest with them. Just tell them the truth, even if it's weird, even if it's hard to hear, even if it's hard to speak, because I'm sure some things for a lot of people are hard to get out too. But I do feel this was definitely my experience growing up too. There's probably a bit of a delusion about what is an age-appropriate conversation. I was made to kind of move through life with parents who sheltered me and squashed me and made me small and wouldn't share things and wouldn't be honest. They lied frequently. They still lied into my adult life. And, you know, how that showed up later in life is just to be really untrusting and just not to really believe anything that they say. But I think there is a delusion that if your child's asking about something, you kind of just got to tell them. You can't wait until it is age appropriate in your eyes or going off what you learned as you were a child, because everything's changed now. Different generations, different times. And also they can just look it up on the internet.
Well, yeah, and I would rather than
Correct.
the internet, because there's so much misinformation out there.
Yeah. All sorts.
Sorry?
Even porn giving wrong ideas about things and just so much
100%.
misinformation. Yeah.
I don't blame people for not knowing what is age appropriate though. And I think that's what I'm saying about people not understanding that, yes, you can start having conversations around sex when they're very young. You don't have to be going into the nitty gritty. It's like simplified version. There's you do the whole flower and seed like kind of thing when they're little, and once you've given them any kind of answer, normally they're just like, okay, cool, bye.
Yep. Now they move on.
Don't remember the first conversations we had around sex, but I know they happened. But it was enough for them to be like, yeah, okay, cool, you've answered my question, thanks, bye.
Totally. Delivering it in a way that they understand.
Yeah, and it's not life-altering for them. It will only be like earth-shattering and life-altering if you continually don't tell them up to the point where, there are schools who are not delivering education around periods and that kind of thing until grade 6, and that's too fucking late.
Me, I got mine in grade 4. I didn't know what the fuck it was. I ran home from school thinking I was dying because I was 10.
Yeah. And kids are getting it quite early now.
Yes.
And a lot of schools are holding back because they're afraid of upsetting some parents. But they're doing the children a disservice.
Yeah.
They're not learning about their own body. They have a right to know about their own body and how their body works and what's happening to them.
Yep.
At an age-appropriate level. So in order for them to be prepared for their period, it might come when they're 9, 10, 11, 12, 15. Everyone's different. But you do need to start telling them early. And it only needs to be that. And then you move on, and same for like boys about erections and ejaculation and things like that. They need to know earlier than year 9. Because my God, by year 9, it's well and truly happening.
Yes.
Withholding that information, I think, is an absolute disservice. It's not fair.
I 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. And, we don't have kids yet, but we've got nephews and nieces going through it, and it is what it is. And they know more than what a lot of people think they do. And unfortunately, if they're not getting it, like you said, directly from the source, directly from you, they're going to be getting it from somewhere, and it's probably going to be wrong. So
that's the other thing. People don't give kids enough credit.
No.
They think they're these precious little flowers that can't handle anything. And they're not.
It's not set up for real life, is it?
No. They can handle it. They really can. And at different levels, obviously, like I said, my son, not ready. Fine.
Yep.
But a lot of people go in with that thought that, he or she or they are not going to be ready.
Yes.
And so they just don't approach it at all. And that's not fair.
Absolutely not. No, I completely agree. Yeah, I love that. I just love how you deliver that, and I love how you introduce that too. And I think it's so important. I wish schools would do more. Our sex ed was taught by the school chaplain of all people. You can imagine how awesome that
prevention. Yeah, scare tactics.
Abstain. Meanwhile, we're all having sex. So.
Yes, the research clearly shows, and this is. You can look it up. Like, I'm not making it up to suit an agenda. The more education kids have around sex, consent, protection, and that kind of thing in a non-abstinence-based way, just a factual way, the less likely they are to partake in sex early.
Yeah, right. I love that.
That it's a fact, but people think the opposite.
It's weird, isn't it? It's the same conversation as I think it was Osher was having a conversation on like the Today Show or something like that. People being like, drug testing is so ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you think your kids aren't going to go and fucking try drugs because you tell them they're bad? You're on drugs yourself. Honestly, like everyone's going to dabble and try things. We need to be educating them on safe ways to do things and safe ways to do it. It's the same it's the same concept. Don't shelter them from it. They're going to do it anyway. Teach them about how to do it well. Mm-hmm. Look, I guess I totally went on a tangent there, but love that. How do you navigate your queer identity, ethical non-monogamy, everything like that, while protecting, I guess, your family's privacy in this as well? Because you are very public and you're out there sharing all these things. And I know, I just want to know more about that, I guess.
Yeah, it's been an ongoing challenge and conversation, I guess, because my husband couldn't be more different to me. He's the most private person ever. And it took me a long time to actually understand that and get around that because, yeah, I'm so different to that. My theory is if you tell everyone everything, then, you know, at least they know the truth and they know it's you. And if they then want to go and talk shit about you, then that, whatever, like that's fine. At least they're doing it based on the truth. And I don't really care. But yeah, it's definitely been challenging. So not the queerness so much. I mean, that's there's no need for me to not be open about that on any level. And my kids have always been aware of that, and it's something I'm very proud of. It would not change for a second. My husband's known it forever. Like, we've got together when we were 14 and he's always known it. So it's no shock to him. The throuple thing was different. That was, probably going, if I could go back, I would have handled it differently. Again, because I live in a regional town, my theory of being out and open about it was that, well, people are going to see us. People know who I am and they're going to see us together, and I might as well just say, yes, this is what's happening. I probably would have, if I could go back, kept it secret for longer, just for the peace of it. Like, really not have involved our families as early, just because it ended up not being that necessary. You know, I couldn't share that. Like, I'm fine with everything, but more so for their sake, as in my partner's sake, that we probably could have kept it quiet. The kids were fine. Like, the kids, again, it was like kids can handle a lot more than adults can, and they don't come with preconceived notions of what should and shouldn't be. They loved her they knew her as a friend first, and they were very, very cool about the whole thing the whole time, and just not phased. Like, it really wasn't a big deal for them. And to be fair, like, it was never a big deal for anyone to my face. So I'm no doubt it would have been conversation, but also, like, that's fine.
I think I'm so similar to you in that way, that I'm obviously so like out and proud about everything. I don't give a fuck. Like, if whatever you want to know about me, I'll just tell you. Like, I have no reason to hide it. I literally don't care. My husband is more private somewhat, but it's never from a place of shame or anything like that, as much as he doesn't like talking about himself or doesn't really share anything. But so I do understand that too, of that you've got such an extroverted, open person versus someone who like more just sticks to themselves and is a little more private about things. And I think that's what makes you guys work, and it's what makes us work too. The balance of being two completely different people, you know. I think that's
But it has been a challenge. I won't lie. Yeah, figuring out what I can and can't say. At times there have been things where he's been like, you need to take that down. I can't have people knowing that about me, that kind of thing, which does my head in. But at the same time, you know, I have to respect that.
Yeah. Did you have your children online when they were younger?
As in, were they allowed to be online?
Yeah. I know.
Did I have them on like my Instagram?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So that's probably something in hindsight I would have done differently, I guess. Now, I didn't have as much knowledge around the online world when they were younger as I do now. I don't share them at all on my public profile.
Yeah, I mean, being 13, 14 too, like that was kind of the start of when all that stuff sort of really happened, was 13 or 14 years ago, right? Everything's changed around the house.
Everyone sharing their kids on Instagram, and would it be different if I started having kids now? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But it's done now. You know?
And they're okay with it, so it's fine.
Like, I only share them on like my private Instagram. I don't share them on my public one ever. So
I think it's an interesting conversation that's happening. And, you know, obviously we're like heavy on the IVF train at the moment. So it's a conversation that we're both having about, you know, again, it's a consent thing, right? They're not old enough to consent to being online. And also I think there's just a lot of creepers and a lot of weird things going on now, and AI things and all of that. That's just really come up out of the woodwork in the last year or two, really, more than anything. 100%. So it's just a wild thing. But I love that that's, you know, private versus public, and you've got your different personas, and it's good. Look, I've really loved having this chat with you today. I think you're incredible, and I think everything you're doing is incredible. Is there any final piece of advice, a hot tip, anything you'd like to share, any insights, anything like that for me to finish this one up today?
Oh gosh.
What haven't I? Sorry.
No, that's okay. Honestly, it's just do what's right for you. It sounds cliche, but really, like, don't do something or not do something based on how you think others are going to react. Like you have to be true to yourself
Yes.
and what feels good for you and what suits your life.
Yes.
No one else is living your life. No one else is in your marriage. No one else is raising your kids. Fuck how it looks to other people. Fuck what they think. Fuck what they say. Just do what's right for you. Stay true to yourself.
Queen, that is the best way to finish that. And I'm so glad that you said that. Just like unapologetically being yourself must be fucking exhausting to be anybody else.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that loud and clear. I think that's my 16 personalities going on at once sometimes. And how can people get in contact with you? How can people find you? Where can they follow you?
Just Instagram at the moment, just JDM Sexology. That's
Awesome.
where I am. I'm firing it up again. I've been quiet this year because I've been working full time, but yeah, I'm getting back into it slowly.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Jay. I really appreciate these conversations, and thank you for being so candid and so open and just sharing a bit about your life. But I love following you. I love the content you put out, and anyone who's listening in, you really should jump on it as well. But thanks so much, Jess. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much. It's been fun.